Welcome to another video of Galway Film Centre's guide to virtual production. Today is all about virtual cameras. Firstly, I'll be showing how you go about adding live video to your project. Once this is done, we can begin creating our virtual camera. The virtual camera is a key component that links the physical world with the digital world. And if you haven't already, do check out Galway Film Centre's previous videos and posts on virtual production. Before we can get our camera feed into our project, we need to ensure all our cables are properly set up. Using our Agicona 4 card, we can run an SDI cable from our camera here into our PC. Here you can see we're running a reference into our Blackmagic recorder, and we're also running this SDI out into our comp, which will be shown in our external monitor. We found ourselves referring to the Unreal Engine 4 documentation when working on the live video inputs. Two documents of note are the Playing Live Video Captures document and the Play a Video File document, both of which we'll link in the description. We recommend spending time reading this documentation for more in-depth detail on video feeds in Unreal Engine 4. With the Agicona 4, we can get two outputs and two inputs through SDI. The input we are going to be using is link 1, and that is our camera feed. This SDI cable will also give us our timecode and genlock. The Ursa Mini is going to be the master and tell Unreal Engine what the timecode and genlock is. We're going to be filming in 1080p at 25 frames per second. For now, we'll be setting up two outputs, the full comp, which is a video feed, the foreground and the background. The second output will solely be the background to the Blackmagic recorder. To set all this up, we need to create a few media assets in Unreal Engine 4. What I'm going to show you now is the end footage and what we hope to have done by the end of this. We're going to have a video feed that's coming in, and we can preview it here in this little window for now. I'm just going to move the camera and you'll see that moving live. And we're going to have a virtual camera that is a little representation of where our camera is pointing and a tracker. And that is what we're going to be controlling. And we're going to have a second tracker in place as reference. So if I move my camera, you'll see as well that this is going to move. So you can see it panning around left to right. And we're looking up and down. So you might have noticed as well that we have our timecode coming in and our genlock coming in at 25 FPS. So what you can do as well is in your viewport, hit here and hit show FPS, and it'll come up and say synchronized. So because we already have all our camera assets set up, this is able to come in with ease. So I'm just going to show you what different sections you need to create it and what settings we have. I won't be going into it in too much detail as this will vary on what equipment you have, but here are the elements you need to make it work. So here we've made a video folder, and as you can see, I'll go for each tab. So we have a media profile, all our outputs, which are for Aja, and we also have an Aja media bundle. If you go in here, this is where our video is. So our texture material and another media bundle. So to create them, you can just right click and we'll go into media and you'll see all the options here. So you'll need your source, your output, and if you're using Blackmagic, the options are there too with the plugin, media player, and media texture. And that's what you'll be using. So to create each of them, you do each step by step. And when you go into them, you'll see something like this. So for us with our Aja media source, we have all the settings here, Kona 4, single link 1, 1080, progressive, and 25. Those are the settings we're using. So these change depending on what output or input we're using. As well, this is going to be where we set up our timecode and our genlock. So as you can see, these settings match the above because we're using the same SDI cable. And same for genlock. So here as well, all you need to do is go into configuration, same settings, apply, and save. And that's when you'll see this coming up. And if you want to make sure, reinitialize, check the timecode for both. They should be lined up. Next, you'll have your actual video coming in. And usually you'll need to double click here to get it up. And to make it visible, simply throw in a plane, rotate it so you can see it. You can change it to the dimensions of your video and just drag it in. And there it is. You might need to rotate just so it's the right way. And that's all we did here to get that live video visible as a reference. And so you know it's coming in. And if it ever stops, all you need to do is go back in here to double click. All of this is explained in the documentation. And here's all of our outputs. So we have the background, foreground, and the entire comp, because that's what we plan on using. This is similar to the media profile where you're just going through each of the settings and deciding which one it is you're going to use. And then again, you're just applying timecode format, pixel format. Logging drop frame is always good to have. So this is all the same throughout. So as you can see, the only difference here is that we're using link 4 instead of 3. And as well, for the comp, we're going to be using 4. And you just save all of them out. We won't be touching these, but it's just to have them set up and ready to go. So once you follow all of that documentation and have all your media templates set up, you're happy to go. You're able to move the camera and you can see live it moving in engine. Great. And you're ready to move on to the virtual camera. When creating our virtual camera, we followed the method Greg Corson provided for his VP Studio demo in Unreal Engine 4. This is a project he's been working on, and he also has posted the full project online as well for you to go through and look through. We recommend following Greg on YouTube for an in-depth tutorial on how to achieve a virtual camera like this one. There are 4 main blueprints we use to create a virtual camera. So firstly, we have the tracker VP cam. So this blueprint contains the tracker delay, the position and rotation of the tracker. It also gives us a motion controller, which allows us to specify which tracker we want to use. And here it is. And then if we open it up, you can see this is the blueprint that Greg provided. So Greg has all of these online. And what's really handy to do as well, there's a website called blueprintue.com. So blueprints is essentially the code that makes everything work. So you can just drag, Control-C to copy, and then you can paste it into that website, add notes, and it creates the exact replication of this to reference. So it's really handy for dragging and dropping stuff that you want to bring in between projects, because sometimes just doing it directly isn't the best practice. So you can see here, if we go to simulate and play, you can see what is happening. Next, you have your camera rig. So this blueprint helps us solve the offset between the tracker and the camera. So if you look at it here, we go in here. Again, we're using a blueprint that Greg's provided and followed his steps to recreate this. So if you zoom in, you can see this is what it'll look like. So what we'll be doing later is measuring our entrance pupil. And when we have that done, we can add the measurements here, set it up like this. So tracker twist, we got a film plane, our entrance pupil, and just our tracker mesh on top. So here you can see we have an object named Ursa Mini. This is simply a cylinder and a cube we created just as a bit of visual representation of our camera, so we can tell which way it's facing. So this helps us understand where the virtual camera is facing and located on play in the Unreal Engine 4 editor. And lastly, we have our VP camera. So this is a virtual camera. It is a cine camera actor. So when you create it, all of this comes in. And all it is the actual camera that we'll be using in Unreal Engine. So there's settings that you'll need to set up to match your camera. So if we go into our details, all of these are the settings. We're using 35mm, for example. You put that in here. You can do focus and everything, and you'll just change this to suit your needs. So once you have all of these blueprints created, and we do recommend following Greg for this because we won't be going through this in deep detail, but once you are happy with it, you need to set it up in a certain way in your viewport. So in the world outliner, what we can do is you drag everything in and you want to set it up like this. So on top, you'll have your Vive puck, then you'll put your rig, then you'll put just the visual aid. So ours is named Ursa Mini. You'll put that in. And lastly, you want the VP camera. So you want all of these to be on 0, 0. And what happens is when you simulate, they jump to the location that they need to be. What we did as well is because we have 2 trackers set up, we created one that was going to be a reference. So you can use the same blueprint as the Vive puck and just copy it out or just drag it in again, name it something else. When you're in the Moetion controller, you can set it up here. So Steam Viewer, we have special 1, and the other one's going to be special 2. So to do that, there's something called VR bindings for Steam. So when you have the plugin enabled, so you can do that in your project settings, which I'll show you. And search Steam. Yeah, so you have your Steam VR input, and you can see here, launch Steam VR bindings. As well, you can see here it says show Steam VR input toolbar button. You just tick that, and when you have that ticked, that's how it comes up here in your toolbar. So you can just hit launch Steam VR bindings. What'll happen is you'll get a localhost pop up. So all of this is stored on your PC directly. And what we want to do is create some new bindings. So because you have 2 trackers or 1, so it's probably assigned as Vive Tracker. And then the next one is probably Vive Tracker on camera. But you can do all this in Steam VR. So what we'll do is just open up our Steam VR. We'll go Devices, Manage Vive Trackers, and then the last one, Manage Vive Trackers. So here you can see we have 2 trackers on. We have 3 total, but right now we're only using 2. We have it set up as camera and chest. So camera and other. So camera is going to be our virtual camera one. So that'll be special 1 we're going to set it up as. And then we have chest, which is fine. That's our other one, and that'll be special 2. So to do that, once you launch your bindings, we're going to choose that one. So we'll do Vive Tracker on camera. We're going to edit action poses, change all of these to special 1, save personal binding, save, and you're ready to go. Once those are set up as well, you can go back into Unreal Engine, change it in the motion controller if you haven't already, special 1, and you can hit play. So for example, if I change this to special 3, it won't work. So it's probably just back here, yeah. It doesn't simulate, it's not working. So even after you set everything up correctly, it can seem like it's not working because on play, nothing happens, nothing's moving. Oh, go back in, change it back to special 1. We'll hit play. Straight away, we can see this is working. You're moving it, it's going the right direction. And for now, that is all we need. It is perfect. So when creating your rig, you might just create temporary measurements for the time being, because what you want to do is find your entrance people. So we'll be going through what method we use to find our entrance people, or the no parallax point in your lens, and then we can add the measurements in here and change them as needs be. When lining up your virtual and real-world camera, it's important to find the no parallax point or entrance people of your lens. This is something you can do in advance, and it's also something you can do for each of the lenses you are using. With most lenses, there's one special point around which you can rotate your camera and get no parallax. This special no parallax point is the center of your lens's entrance people, a virtual aperture within the lens. To find this, we are lining up our camera and 2 tripods in a straight line and just moving our camera view from side to side to see if we can see the second tripod from any angle. We'll keep doing this until we find a point in which we don't see the second tripod from any angle. Now that we have the measurements of the entrance people, it's time to tweak the camera rig just to put in those measurements. So we'll go back in. So if you put in temporary ones, this is when you'll change it. So this will be in the cylinders. So right now we have 15 centimeters and we have 10 centimeters. So just by changing the Z amount and moving it in place, this is how you get the measurement. So this end here is going to be your entrance pupil, and this here is where your tracker is located in relation to it. Then you'll just compile, save, and when you simulate, your camera will be dragged to that position. So we'll just play. And as you can see, everything just is brought to position when you simulate, and everything is set up in this order. Again, this is just all referenced in Greg Corson's video, and he goes through it in much more detail than we are right now. Once you have a basic virtual camera working, you're well on the way to having a workable setup. As you can see here, we have some form of tracking working. It may not be accurate yet, but this is something we tweak once we have our green screen setup working. So we can also make sure our second tracker is working just by moving it quickly in the scene. We have 2 trackers that are working that we're happy with. We have a rig that's working, and we have live video coming in. By having a live feed of your video in your project and by having your virtual camera linked to your Vive tracker, you now have the two core components of your virtual production shoot in place. Be sure to check the links in the description for our recommended list of resources for all aspects of virtual production. And as always, we'd like to thank our partners Galway 2020 and Screen Talent Europe for making all of this possible. In the next video, we'll be covering all aspects of green screen, from ensuring you can key properly to having an accurate garbage map. Once this is all set up, all the key components of a virtual production setup are in place. And as always, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time for even more virtual production.